Welcome back to another reading and correcting with me, Kindar, the Tiger Writes, and Ty, the Tiger Supervisor. These are where I read a chapter from one of my stories and correct it as I go. If you want to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch and YouTube. And if you are looking to support me, that is on my Patreon. Today, I am doing chapter 79 of The Captain's Heart. Jeremy looked over the design of the circuits he'd made as he walked. He still couldn't see why it wouldn't work once printed, and he hoped builder Atirikna Drug could shed lights on where his mistake was. The growling stopped him by the sheer incongruity of hearing an animal on the ship. Unlike humans, Kelsirians didn't seem to have pets. He looked around for it, but it was only him and Kelsirians in the halls, hunters, who were watching one of theirs who was the one growling like an animal, looking at Jeremy. Despite being dressed in a practical vest and pants many of the hunters preferred, lots of pockets and places to hook tools or weapons, there was a roughness to this one that went beyond sounding like animal. "What are you?" she asked. "Hi," hesitated. This was one of the prisoners Gralgiran had told him about. "I'm Jeremy. I'm a human. The Federation calls my species Earthers." He'd mentioned they lived among the hunters, but Jeremy hadn't expected to come across one of them. Not even a dozen of them spread over 3 decks that were part of the hunter area. What were the odds he'd run into one of them? "Tell me," she snarled. Her snarling approach was cut off by one of the hunters interposing himself. "Remember yourself, Argent Framal Jamorink. Remember where you are." She glared at him and he held her gaze. "Who are you?" she asked. "Worker 7920. She frowned, looked around. "That is who you were. You are no longer incarcerated," she stuttered. "Who are you?" Argent Fra, she said, as if she had to pull the information from far away. "Daughter of Frelen from Krelier Sel Centaur." "Good. Where are you?" She looked around. Everyone in the hall had stopped, but Jeremy couldn't tell if they were ready to intervene or not. As far as he could tell, the hunters were simply curious about the exchange. A ship. Ally or enemy? She seemed to have trouble with that question. And Jimmy realized that whatever he thought the prison was, when his heart had explained the need to take on criminals who were done with their sentence and bring them to kill. This is clunky. They'd take on Jimmy realized that whatever he thought the prison was, when his heart had explained they'd take on released criminals and bring them to Kelser, he had been wrong. She seemed to have forgotten what it meant to be in society. Ally. Good. How do you behave with an ally? You. She was searching again. Ask, don't take. He stepped out of her way. "Tell me what you are." She frowned. "Please?" It was clear she hadn't understood him. He started typing his answer. "I understand Earther," the hunter said. "I can translate." "Thank you. He took a breath and tried for the best Kelsirian he could hear. Technician Jeremy Bradshaw. Technician wasn't too rough on his throat, and his name was in English. Then he had to stay in English. "I'm human. The Federation calls my species Earthers." Earther. Earthers. Another word that didn't destroy his throat. "I'm the captain's heart." The hunter kept what Jeremy said, nearly identical, but used alpha instead of captain. The woman stepped back. "Sorry, I didn't know. I didn't mean to." "Calm. Virgin Mal, Ramo, Ramorink, Jamorink, the hunter said, brief and calm. You are among allies, Remember? Allies don't punish mistakes. Allies understand that errors happen. We explain ourselves. The fear didn't entirely leave her eyes, but her ears hesitatingly straightened. I'm sorry, she said, sounding like she'd run. I didn't mean to offend you, to offend the heart of the Alpha who is bringing me home. It's okay, he replied. I don't expect you or anyone to treat me differently because of him. The hunter's ears folded partially, and what Jeremy had learned matched the roll of the eyes. What he said was, the Alpha's heart understands you can know who he is. He isn't offended. Jimmy thought about calling the man out on completely changing what he said, but figured an argument before her wouldn't help anything, since his words were putting her at ease. If she has questions, I'm willing to answer them. Are you sure? The hunter asked in English. She lost most of what the tact she might have had before. I'm here and I don't work until second shift. I have time. The hunter let her know, and movement restarted in the hall. She did have questions, and while Jimmy couldn't answer them all, he wasn't touching those about how his god had let him have a Kelsirian heart, and the other relating to them. He thought it went well, until she asked how they could have sex since they were different species. Then he faltered. When he faltered, she suggested he show her, and Jeremy faltered even more. The hunter didn't help. He mentioned the leisure alley a couple of intersections back. He found that whatever ease he'd gained walking around the reservoir naked didn't apply here. As gently as he could, he explained this wasn't happening. He was with Gralgiran and suggested she look up anatomy books to learn about the similarities between their species. Then he excused himself and continued on his way. As soon as the door closed behind him in Atirikna Dromar's workshop, he leaned back against it. She stopped welding and looked in his direction. Technician Jeremy Bradshaw. This is a surprise. Why do you look like you've escaped hunters? He chuckled. I've escaped way too personal questions. Don't think I'll ever get used to how at ease Kelsirians are about talking about sex and the stuff around it. Ah, she said, people will be curious about what they don't know. She went back to welding, sending sparks up. Pushed away and approached. He should have put on the contact lenses she'd made him. But he thought of them as swimming aids instead of whenever light might be intense one. He kept an arm before his eyes. What are you working on? Playing. Seeing what kind of alloy what kind of alloys have the best tensile resistance. Never know what you'll end up working with on the front. Nothing worse than putting together a shelter from attack only for that to fall around your ears because the welds didn't take to the material. Okay, putting together a shelter. Yeah, that's better. Nothing worse than putting together a shelter from what you find around you for that to fall around your ears because the welds didn't take to the material. She shut the welder down. Did you come here only seeking refuge? I've got a problem with the circus I designed. It's not working. I need your professional opinion on what my mistake is. Send it and I'll look it over. Jeremy opened the door to Gralgiran's office. Gral, are you busy? With a wave of the hand, he moved the files floating over his desk to the side. Not if you need something. He sat on the chair facing his heart. I met one of the released criminals. It went well. He hurried to add, how come that seems to surprise you? Didn't the hunter report it to you? Gralgiran closed his muzzle. If you say it went fine, I doubt they had a reason to report it. He took a breath. Tell me about that incarceration center. She barely seemed civilized. His heart nodded. They aren't good places. Then he told them about the terraforming. Now, prisoners were sent there to work. to work off their sentences, how they were basically dropped into a barely livable environment and forced to fend for themselves. The better centers at least maintained the living domes, so they had a safe place to return to. This hadn't been one of the better centers. He hoped that living among the hunters, they could relearn what it meant to be a person, but he didn't hold out hope. Yeah. I got hope twice. If we were among humans, I would go. He didn't hold out his breath. I don't know what to do. Okay. The people sent to incarceration centers weren't good people to start with, and their time there didn't do much to improve them. Jeremy hugged his heart. So you what? Atarikna asked, reaching for the handle over her head. Take this and pull? When it didn't move, she used her other hand and pulled herself up instead of it down. When I get the circuits to talk to each other and can adjust the gravitics, it'll provide resistance, which forces me to put effort into it and results in toning my muscle. Depending on the exercise used, I can build up strength or endurance. She snorted, the way I hear it. Jeremy, you don't need more endurance. He shrugged. The exercise is also good to maintain, is also to maintain good physical health. Never cared to rely on medicine for that. That's what a good fight is for, or a good fuck. He hung his head, hoping he wasn't in for another recounting of what she liked to do with her partners. She chuckled, dropping to the floor. I don't understand your reluctance to hear about what others get up to in bed. I'm going to call it a human thing and leave it at that. Sex is simply not something we talk openly about. He set the circuits back in place, powered the machine, and yes, blue light. He tapped the control screen and the settings appear. He adjusted the mast to at the other end of the pulley. Try it now. She reached up and with effort pulled it down. More effort than he expected based on the number he read. It needs fine-tuning, but at least it's working. He passed his bracelet before the reader and the screen reset. He entered varying weights and numbers of repetitions. Swipe yours. She did, and the screen reset. He swiped his, and the previous entry returned. And it reads our bracelets, so even if I can't get the numbers to match the actual mass they should be producing, I can go by feel and know I'm working with the same weights. She rested her muzzle on his shoulder as she read the screen. You're most likely dealing with a ratio discrepancy between the controller and sensing circuits. Best way to adjust that is to use a calibrating array. I can talk my maid into letting us use the one they have in mechanical. And what is that going to cost me? A meal. Me and her, you and your heart. Trabarin's grill. I can do that. When do you think she'll be able to get us access? Oh, I can convince her to let us use it as soon as I'm done convincing her. He preemptively hung his head. You want to watch? I'm sorry, Gralgiran said. You offered for him to watch? Instead of offended, his heart was amused. I said no. Gralgiran patted his hand. I understand. Jeremy rolled his eyes. No, you don't. He chuckled. My discomfort amuses you. None of you can wrap your minds around how a species can be so different from you. Trust me, I'm the same with how willing you are to talk about sex, or how comfortable you are being naked. Not species. Atarikna's mate said, I fully understand how species can have been made to be different. You'll never get a Saladin to talk about sex or be willing to hear about anything they'll find titillating. Because once they get going, they have to finish. Tarhunians are a bit like you on exposing themselves. But I have trouble with you is that you have a Kelsirian heart. That means our gods were involved. Why not make you more like us so that you wouldn't have this difficulty? Camouflage. Atarikna said, Garen calls us muzzled. Then I hadn't thought about that. You had to live among Earthers, so your behavior couldn't be so different, did notice. I'm attracted to man. Jimmy pointed out. You don't get that much more different among humans, and I paid for it. But you were discovered because of your youthful ignorance. Gralgiran said, if you'd grown up without being noticed, you would have quickly learned not to show signs you were. I'm not the only one who was caught and treated. I doubt they were all kids like me. They didn't have me as a heart. Gralgiran said, and Jeremy was amused at how he acted like that was answer enough. And your faith in gods is another point I have trouble understanding. Where's your evidence? The three of them looked at him, stunned. Gralgiran leaned close and rubbed his muzzle against his cheek. It's before us, Jer. Right before us. And that concludes chapter 79 of The Captain's Heart. If you are enjoying this, please leave a like. If you want to know when the next chapter will be up, subscribe and hit the bell. If you want to read this story, it is up for free on Ream Story. And if you want to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch and YouTube. The links are in the notes. And with that, I shall wish you a good day.